End of day 41. So here's where we finished. Got some goals accomplished. Honestly, I got the majority of the list done. Just a couple of minor things that I had on the list also. Didn't get that, but I got the big stuff done. Engine is in. It's not like that's a huge feat and a huge accomplishment. It's not like it was going to be hard. It was a little tricky doing it by myself, but because you got to get the right angle to get this thing stabbed in. I had to yank the bolt-in cross member out from back there. There's another cross member down there that's riveted in, so you don't have the option of even pulling it out to get out of the way, obviously. And it's not like they haven't been putting 306s in these things for 100 years or whatever. I mean, it's an easy bolt-in, right? But that trans, I never put a 5-speed in a 70, so I was more concerned with that and what I was going to have to do for the hump on the inside. I didn't want to cut it any more than what I had to. And that was another piece of the trickery because there was no clearance on this side. I mean, look at that. You're not getting a finger in between there. And yes, I gouged the heck out of the paint back there, but that's okay. No big deal. The only place I got into the white was right here on this edge of this lip. Shh, don't tell Woody. I mean, you know he doesn't watch these videos anyway, especially ones that I make, so he'll never know. So, I got that taken care of. I cut as little as I had to. Let me flip on my... Maybe I'll just leave this light in here as an interior light. Yeah. That's my new dome light. How you like it, folks? Anyway, trimmed away as little as possible. All kind of on a guess. But my guesses came out pretty good. I'm going to trim back probably a little bit. I don't know if it's going to have to sit that high. It's just sitting on a jack right now, just loosely. It's pressed probably up against the floor in a little bit of spot, but I didn't want to cut the hole any bigger than what I had to because I don't know what I'm going to have to do to get that all covered up and get that shifter boot and everything in there. I got it out and kind of tried to figure it out, but anyway, the whole thing was twisted when I got it in there, and I just trimmed back as little as I had to get everything to fit. So it's in. Day 41 is over, pretty much. And I'm going inside to spend a little bit of time with the family and celebrate my accomplishment of some goals. So got some weight back on the front. I had it sitting at kind of ride height. These urethane bushings, I went with the Prothane bushings. That's the same bushings I got for the body mounts, Prothane. It's that red urethane. I know. I'm probably going to hear those later. But let me know. Leave me a comment down below if you use these things and if you have any problems with them or anything. That sucker is tight. And I know it's going to have to move around a little bit to get those things moving. But man, that suspension, those springs, and those hangers, they are, I mean, it's tight back there. I jumped up and down on it and it's barely moving. So had it sitting at ride height-ish before when I was fitting those wheels and tires, and I want to get this thing as low as I can, but I know the reality is, I mean, it's only going to get me as low as these things will get me, and then a little bit off the springs or the Explorer springs. So realistically, maybe 5 inches in the front, and I'm just going to level it out. So if I can drop it down more in the rear from where I had it earlier, I will, because I want to get it just as low as I can, and I want it to sit level to maybe just a hair of a rake in the back. I mean, just a little bit, just a hair above level. So one of these days I'll get there and figure out where that is because I got so much work to do. But I'm really happy that on day 41, I've got an engine sitting in here at least, so I know what I got going on. So this week will be get the trans cross member fit and just kind of figure out where all this stuff is going to lay. Finish trimming the hole around the shifter and just in general get this stuff bolted down. There's no reason really for me to have to pull this thing back out that I can think of. I've got to get my brake master cylinder in there. I got to get that steering box out of there, and I like all the room that I'm seeing here, just in this general area right here. Obviously the oil filter comes out, but I like the room here, and I got that smaller master cylinder diaphragm booster. So that should be good to allow more room up there. Somewhere in here I got to put that clutch master cylinder. Which is this little dude right here. It's the original one that I got from Larry at Import Masters. It was on the truck. So this is where we're at. End of day 41. Lots done. Lots accomplished. Lots to do. Hey, day 42. Not much to report. Not much visually to report. Let's talk about this first. Okay, so I got the engine stabbed in last night. And when I quit, I had the trans held up by the jack just to kind of let it sit there because I didn't know where it needed to sit. Didn't have the cross member back in, trans cross member. So I got it back in there just to kind of mod and to fit, or to do some mock-up. And that's where we're at. So I'm going to modify that. It's going to move back about 8 inches. You can kind of see where it was and where it's sitting now. So, yeah, 8 to 10 inches or so. It's going to move back. I'm going to plate it and do some modifications, and we're going to use it and go with it. The engine's sitting pretty good. If anything, it's sitting at about 7 degrees now, just kind of mocked up sitting there. I'll be able to space it and tilt it, up. Oh, don't mind my homemade Band-Aid. So that's what you call a shop Band-Aid. That would be a paper towel and some cheap masking tape. So that's really the only thing visual that happened. I'm back. I spent too long messing with tires and wheel combinations today. So I've got it narrowed down to a couple. I talked to a couple of companies and trying to figure out what width, what backspace, what tire I can put on, and all that stuff. So basically, long story short, after yesterday fitting, measuring, I had to come back out and refit and remeasure. And now Cam's going to bring me the second wheel. I'm going to go pick it up tomorrow because this is where we're sitting right now. And there's multiple things that factor in here. I realize now that this body line has a little bit of a bow in it, inward in the center. Excuse me. So I need to get both wheels and tires on and see where I sit. If I have enough room, I can wedge in what I really want. And we'll talk more about that later as soon as I figure out whether I can do it or not. So that's really it. But I know I keep going over this and I keep talking about the same damn thing. But I got to tell you something. Tonight I'm in the midst of doing all this stuff. And I'm talking to Cam about some stuff. And he says, hey, can I borrow a hammer and a dolly? He's welding up some stuff on the Roadrunner. Keep this in mind. He's got damn near as big a project going on as I do. The whole front end of his car is off. The engine's out. Trans is out. The whole, you Mopar guys know what I'm talking about. The whole cradle is out. It's just the bare unibody of his car sitting up on stands. He's been stripping the firewall. He's been welding up some cracks in some of the inner structure that he found, from years of use and abuse. So what I'm trying to say is he's got a lot on his plate to get done to be able to make it on this power tour also. My friends never cease to amaze me. So he comes over here to borrow a hammer and a dolly because he's welding up the hole in the firewall and he wants to straighten out this piece of metal before he welds it in. So he comes over here with that intention. Well, like a couple of squirrels, we bounce from one topic to another subject. We're under here, we're talking about the cross member. And he gives me the amazing, I had this, again, I overthought this thing like 100%. He lays underneath there and goes, why don't you just blah, 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 this, that, this, puts a plate here, do this, do that. I'm like, dude, that's why I need somebody like you over here to help me simplify stuff. So while we're laying underneath there, then we get on the topic of emergency brake cables. So we're looking at e-brake cables. And he said, well, why don't you just do this and this and this and this? Because I was kind of throwing my idea of what I might do to try to make them work. Why don't you just do this, this, this? Again, great idea. Another reason, you know, need everybody's help through all this deal. So then we bounce out of there and somehow we get to the dashboard. We get to the dash cluster. And I don't know why, but he says, what gauges you plan on running? Because I had the actual cluster that goes in here sitting on my bench back there, and we were standing back there. He goes, what are you going to do here? And I said, well, I was thinking about putting in some aftermarket gauges. Jegs has a white face gauge set. It's got the speedo and the tack. I think they're 3 3/8, and then it's got the other 4. It's a nice set. It's a good looking set, but it's high dollar. I mean, you're going to have, I wanted to get a GPS speedo sensor. So you're $500 in pretty easily. But, you know, Jegs has always been good quality stuff. I look at some of the stuff on eBay. Yes, there's a lot of different things available. But what are you going to get? You don't know what you're getting. It's not a name brand. Are you going to spend $300 on something that doesn't work? I don't know. You see some reviews are decent, some reviews are not. So, anyway, he says, well, ultimately, what would you like to do? I said, well, ultimately, I would love to have a factory cluster with all the factory gauges that work. That's what ultimately I'd like. He goes, well, so we take it apart. We take the little cluster piece that sits in the dash. We take it apart so you can get to the backing out. And he said, how about you let me take this for a little while? What do you mean? Well, I'm going to see if they work. I'll test them and I'll put them on my bench and do all this stuff. This dude's got as much stuff to do as me, and he's taking my stuff saying, can I help you? And not only that, the heater box that goes down in there, the whole assembly that basically takes up half the underside of the dash, he did all the work on my 57 underneath the dash. And he says, oh, I'm going to take this heater box with me too. Where's your new heater core? I'm going to take this box, I'm going to rebuild this box for you, and I'll have it all ready to go. Do you guys understand why I talk about how I'm blessed? I have friends like this. So just pop in to borrow a hammer and dolly. Before I know it, he is volunteering to take my dash cluster and my heater box and basically rebuild them and get them operable. He's like, just let me spend 30 minutes on your dash cluster. Dude, I don't know. I'm just surrounded by amazing people. So, and I love and appreciate them so much. And if this truck makes it, it's probably more because of them than it is because of me. So, all right, that's all I got tonight. This is where we're at. Just kind of nothing more visual to look at, except for that cross member. So goal tomorrow is to get that cross member done and in, and to start getting get the cross member done and in, and get this tunnel finished as far as what I have to cut and mod here, so that the engine and trans will be bolted in, finalized, and I can start attaching things and moving on to construction, you know, because we are fully under construction. That's all I got for day 42. Day 44. What? Day 44. Day 44. It's day 44 here in the shop. And I am working on modifying my transmission crossmember. I'm going to use this plate. This is the idea that Cam came up with the other day, which was much simpler than my idea. So cut down some stuff I had, 7 1/4 by, I don't know, 6 or something. Needed a couple of 1/2 inch holes, 2 3/4 inches apart. This thing's going up underneath the cross member and welding to it. And I'm gonna throw a couple bolts in it too, just, because that massive horsepower from that 306 probably needed this 1/4 inch plate. And because that's how 306s are. So getting this done. Goal tonight is just to get that done. Missed last night, had a track meet for Bryson, so by the time I got out here, I actually was trying to finish Shannon's dresser that went to crap. Long story short, didn't work out the way we planned. So, just like a lot of things, just like a 100-day challenge on an F100. So, goal is to get this thing done tonight, get my transmission tunnel trimmed, maybe set the shifter in the boot just to make sure it fits all right, and call it good for tonight. Oh, grab that other test fit wheel from Cam today. So I'd like to get that bolted on and just check out side-to-side measurements. I think I have talked myself into a final decision on wheel for now. When you're looking at wheels and you look at, I don't know, there's been wheels in the past where you come across a wheel and you're just like, that's it. I love it. It looks awesome. They have it my size. Back spacing's right. I can get that. Blah, 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 blah. I went with a 5 on 4.5 bolt pattern with this truck at a lot more labor, more cost, other people's labor. So I would have an enormous amount of choices. And I'll be damned if they all right now just don't look the same to me. I mean, a lot of the wheels look the same. So I had rounded it or got it down to 2. And then one of those 2 choices I actually saw on a vehicle. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not it. The inside of the wheel curves outward. That's what I call a bulging wheel, not a concave wheel. I didn't like it. So that knocked me down to my 1. So I'm going to go with it, I think. And I'm just going to tell you now, it's a steely wheel. It's a 20 by 11 steel wheel for the back, straight up offset, 6-inch back spacing, 315/35 tire. I'm going to run a factory Ford center cap. I haven't decided which one yet. And I haven't decided what color yet. So that's it. Nothing special. Unfortunately, those wheels aren't cheap, but they're cheaper than a lot of them out there. And if you don't just find that wheel that just grabs you and says, this is it, and you're just ultimately like, that is the wheel for this truck, then you don't go buy some, dump a whole bunch of money into something else. And so you go with Old Faithful and something that looks awesome. And that's a steel wheel, just a steely, the factory center cap, nice big and bulging out back, 20 by 11 in the back, and I believe a 20 by 9 in the front. I think I'm going to run a 245/40 in the front, 315/35 in the back. I got so many tire sizes bouncing through my head, and wheel offsets and wheel sizes, and yeah. But I got to get it ordered. I got to get them here. That way Clint over at Casco Logics can finish my front rotors, and because we need that center bore, so we know if it needs to be turned down at all. That's it. I'm gonna get this stuff done. Move on. Wrapping up day 44. I've done enough grinding, cutting, drilling, welding, measuring, hammering. Easy on the hammering, not a lot. Wrenching, I'm done. All for one cross member. So, let me get down there a little bit and see if you can see it. So I did the mod to the cross member, just a 1/4 inch thick piece of steel. It's welded here, here, same on the other side. Welded all the way across the back. You can see my finger up there, all the way across the back. I left a little overhang and welded it up, and it's welded all the way across the front on, so basically through here. Got good penetration on it. It was glowing pretty good. I don't know, those are probably, that weld up there, the one that nobody will ever see, was the best looking weld. Of course, that's the way it goes. So I can release some stuff a little bit, get this board out of here. It was just kind of for some support. Get that out of there, and I've got these new holes drilled. That's where I had to go from this hole to this hole. So it moved back a good 8-10 inches. But I think it's going to be fine. It's got it sitting at the right angle. Yeah, it's going to be fine. I like it. Let's call day 44 done.